We took over a high school gym in Manchester. At the end of Saturday afternoon's finals, I walked into the makeshift VIP section, the teacher's lounge, and about 6 or 7 of the CEOs of these Fortune 50 companies were there with their teams. What did you think? The first response I got from one of these guys was, "You lied to us." I'm a pain. I don't lie to anybody. But one by one, these guys started to smile and said, "Dean, you lied. You didn't tell us when you said it would be nights and weekends with these kids, that by the end of about 2 weeks, it would be all night and all weekend to try to turn this pile of junk into something that would run. And with my name on the side of that robot, whether it was GE or Hewlett Packard, I wasn't going to let this thing not look good." But one by one, they said, "But you didn't tell us that our engineers would get more out of it than the kids. You didn't tell us that the kids weren't building robots. They were building serious relationships with serious adults." It doesn't happen much in this country anymore. Not for most kids. You didn't tell us they weren't building, they were building self-confidence. They were building an awareness. Anyway, I could see that most of these people get it. And I said, "If I do it again next year, will you come back?" How many of them said they'd come back? All of them. Well, you're all on the boards of other big companies. Bring your friends. I wish I could show you how it evolved. We started going to Little League and younger kids and starting doing regionals around the country, but I really have like 5 minutes. So I'll just give you some data. By the end of the 5th year of coming back for the traditional, every year we made the kid a little bigger, gave him more cool stuff to play with. Every year we had something like 55% compound annual growth. So by the 5th year, they come back for the traditional kickoff in January, but I tell them, you can't come back to Manchester at the end of 5 weeks because there's no venue left in the state big enough to hold our event. But we've got another sponsor. You brought him to Al Weiss. Al Weiss agreed to host us at Disney, and they built us the Olympic Village of technology. We're the only outside event they sponsor. We also started doing regionals. That's what you do in sports because it was getting too expensive. I was running out of Fortune 500 companies that were adopting teams, and they would have to take kids and engineers and parents and teachers, put them on airplanes, fly them to Disney. Well, we got to start doing regionals so that the major companies in any city could host a local event, typically at a university, and I know that UCSD is down here, San Diego State's down here. They're both in this room. They should be fighting for who's going to be the host of the San Diego Regional next year. You've had 3 regionals. Anyway, by the end of 5 years, we started running regionals. In the 6th year, we had 2 cities hold regionals, then 4, then 8. At the end of our 10th year, 5 years of going back to Disney, 5 years in a row and doubling, at the end of the 10th year, we had another break with the tradition. We couldn't hold our events at Disney anymore because they could only build a temporary arena that holds 20,000 people. And by then we had 23 cities holding regionals throughout March. Every weekend in March, our March Madness was now New York, Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Jose, Cleveland. So we took over a little place some of you have heard of called the Astrodome in Houston for our finals that year. And then for the last few years, those same people that rolled their eyes at me when I said, we're going to make science and technology so cool for kids, it'll be the sport for them. It'll be like an Olympic sport. Well, in 1996, this country, as I keep pointing out, it's a culture thing, we build monuments to what we celebrated. In 1996, we were the proud sponsors of the International Olympics, for which we built the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, 72,000 seats. For the last 5 years, we've finished out March by going to the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Before I run out of time, since you think I'm making this up, I'll give you the fastest review of first you've ever seen pictorially. By the way, why did we start first? One of my heroes is Big Al. Everybody thinks of all the serious things he said, very cerebral. He also said this near the end of his life. The difference between genius and stupidity is that stupidity has its limits. You think about that a minute and look at the world around you. If you don't think this country is in desperate need of making all of its kids smart to deal with our own problems and to help the rest of the world, where there are 4 billion people that are living on less than $2 a day, they are not going to solve global, environmental, political, or any other kind of problem. We're very lucky We're very privileged. We ought to be very responsible as well. We have the capacity to educate 40 million kids, and they all deserve to be educated. So, supply side, as I said, its standards, curriculum, it's all that stuff. I don't know how to argue with any of that. I'm sure we need more of that. Everybody's working on all of that. Great. It's not about supply and demand, though. Where's the demand? What's going to make kids want to spend 10 years of their life working hard at something that seems irrelevant? So look at it as an innovator. It's about demand and supply. Create the demand. 1992, first year we did this, the then President of the United States shows up in that 160-year-old mill in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's my office. And I said to he, the candidate at the time, "You want to be the education president. That's what you keep saying." I pointed out to Bill Clinton an hour before that, who also stood at that podium, "You want to be the education president." The trouble is presidents don't educate anybody. But both of you guys threw out the first ball of the baseball season because both of you invite the winners of the Super Bowl to the White House. You have a great bully pulpit. Why don't you each announce from my pulpit that you're going to bring the winners of our competition to the White House, bring these kids and their mentors and their sponsors to the White House? They both did. 6 weeks later, getting ready for that invitation to the White House, this is the high school gym, and that's the shoebox-sized junk that the teams got. And everybody in the world that had ever heard of First is in this gym in Manchester. Mr. Clinton became the president in the interim and did bring the winners to the White House. I gave him a First t-shirt, told him they're $15, and he paid for it like everybody else. This is what we looked like for the next 5 years as we grew into and out of Disney. The last year we were at Disney, that was our 20,000-seat arena. When we told Al Weiss and company we couldn't come back in the next year, they shut down the park the night of our 5th year there and celebrated with all of our kids and sponsors, volunteers. And the next year we went to Texas. This is a great arena. But if you saw the energy and passion of the kids there, we were a combination of the Super Bowl, the Final Four, you name it, in the Astrodome. For the last 5 years, here we are in the Georgia Dome. This is the pit area in the Georgia Dome. Last year, before he left office, the then President of the United States brought our kids to the White House. By then, we had not only the high school competition, you met some of those kids, and the middle school. We have not Little League, we have Lego League. And he brought all the winners. They fired up a 130-pound robot, went running at the president with that year's game piece. He had a very excited set of people from security. I can also point out to you, as you can see here, they were nice enough to take the table out of the East Room so that we could do this. They didn't take the chandeliers out. Anybody want to guess how tall a robot is when it picks up a piece that size? But anyway, this is what we look like in the Georgia Dome last year. This is, again, just the pit area where these kids are working. Motorola here, by the way, is one of the sponsors of your event, along with BAE, along with Viasat, along with, you've got a lot of companies here. Qualcomm was the core that brought us in here 3 years ago, the Jacobs family. 38% of the kids, by the way, 38% of the kids on these teams are women and minorities. You don't want to know the percentage of women and minorities in the United States that are practicing engineers, that hold patents. It's both embarrassing and scary and unsustainable. They know how to do things